Here with Terry Ray, 88 to 93, correct? At OU?
That's correct. 92 was my last.
Okay,
91 was my last fall. 92 was my first NFL year.
nice. So you came in with Belser in that class, or?
I did come in with Jason Belser. That's yeah, he and I we had a good time when we were playing back in the old days.
He was telling me, I think it was the '88 season, you guys' freshman season, when one of the coaches come up and asked if you guys wanted to lose your red shirt because you guys were just blowing through people.
Yeah, we were. I remember we had a couple of games. There was a home game, might have been like North Texas or something. No, I take that back. Our first game was on the road. It was at North Carolina. Was the first game that they played in the new North Carolina stadium that they now have. It was actually Mac Brown. He was the coach there, and I had no idea at the time who he was or how he was going to be, instrumental down the line. But yeah, it was against him, and so that was the first game that I remember playing in. And the second game, we were on the road at USC, and that was just a whole different game. But then we came back home and we started playing home games, whooping up on some guys, and Jason and I had just been traveling. We didn't know, and we didn't play in those first two games. But then we got back home. Things got real for us, and they started inserting us in. They asked us if we wanted to play, and we had no idea what it meant specifically to throw away your entire redshirt year after the season. So we're like, yeah, I mean, heck yeah, that's what we came here for. Full of all that energy that young men have, and and they threw us out on the field, and before you knew it, we were just like you said, we were just knocking heads and just having a good time.
Oh man, you guys were like missiles, man, too. Like just
your sound. Hold on, your sound is messed up again.
Is it messed up again?
Yeah, it sounds like you're underwater.
Oh man, is that better?
No, I don't know what happened. It was doing just fine for a minute there.
Yeah, I can hear it through on your side there. Is that better? No.
Change that. Does it make it better?
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. That's weird, man. I don't know what it's, but
let's see, when I can hear you, it keeps going real quiet. So I'm just going to hold it right here for a second.
Oh man,
so I can hear what your question is.
Oh, that's terrible, man. No, I was just talking about you going to OU in '88, your freshman season, but a lot of people, I don't know, probably don't know too much about your high school career and before that, but you were born in Shape, Belgium.
That is correct. I'm from Killeen, Texas, which is an Army town. So Fort Hood, Texas. So I'm an Army brat. Dad was in the military, and that's where I was born, Shape, Belgium. And then grew up there in Central Texas, which is our northwest of Austin. And grew up there, went to high school there. High school career was kind of typical where, you start off on the freshman team, the sophomore team, and then me and a bunch of guys, we were good enough as sophomores to be elevated to the JV squad and then eventually varsity. And so we had a good little core of guys who we ended up having a few guys that ended up going to college, had some major deals, and I was behind the guy who also played at Oklahoma, biggest middle linebacker you've ever seen, Frank Blevins. He was on my high school football team. And so the year that he went, which would his first fall would have been 87. And then he went and he was having a great time. And I was just like, I want a piece of what he's got going on up there. So it wasn't hard to follow what he had done and what I had seen my brother, who had also gone to Oklahoma, make their way up there. So I was like, the Oklahoma looks like it's going to be the place for me. So after one conversation, on a recruiting trip with Barry Switzer, I remember telling him the story about how when he came down to recruit my brother, and my brother's 12 years older than me, so I had to be like, 6 years old when he came into the house, and Barry had said that, you be a smart, get tough, be strong. Said one of these days I'll come back and I'll recruit you too. And I was like, okay. And it stuck with me. And he said that to a 6-year-old, and it was something that I always just remembered. And so when I went on my recruiting visit and I went into his office and he had his little rings out and he was going to go into his spiel, I'm like, look, I'm sold. You don't even have to tell me anything and all the other stuff. Like, you told me when I was 6, if I did all these things, and I've done all these things. And so here I am. I'm here to go to school here, and I'm here to play football. And he just thought that was the greatest thing.
That is pretty neat, man. That is, I've never heard a Switzer story like that. That's a good one, man.
Yeah.
Very good. So after OU got drafted by the Falcons, 6th round, was Scott Case there when you were in Atlanta?
Yes, he was. Scott was there. So I was there in camp with Scott. Frank was there again, and then Scott. What was his name? Scott Case. Scott. What was it? Scott Evans. He was there.
Oh yeah.
The defensive lineman, and so having seen those guys, I kind of had a little bit of a comfort as to what I thought I was getting into, which was, football is football until, you go out the first day and it's hotter than it's ever been ever. Like, it's a different kind of, it's hot in Oklahoma, but it's it's not as humid as it is in Atlanta because, Atlanta's kind of like, there's more trees, there's more forest, there's just more humidity in the air, just kind of thick, and it just hangs around you. So I'm just sitting out there the first day after we've gone through mini camps and we've gone through all this stuff, and it's the first day of camp, and we have been literally out of the building 20 minutes. We've been stretching. I'm already like panting and hot and sweating, and I haven't even gotten up and started to run, jog, and stuff back and forth. And so I finally get to the point where, we've lined up, we've sprinted, we warmed up, and then Jerry Glanville blows the whistle, and it's inside running. We go over, and there's a guy that they had drafted the 2nd round, I think his name, Tony Smith, they had drafted, and he was the running back, and he was going to be the new face of the franchise going forward, as a offensive weapon. And first play, we line up on the inside run, and a guy whose name I had heard, but I hadn't put who he was as an athlete yet, with like what he was capable of. First play, inside run, fullback misses the block on the middle linebacker, Jesse Tuggle, and Jesse Tuggle tears this rookie's head off. Tony gets up off the ground looking at his ear hole, and I'm thinking, whoa, this is my first play of practice, and I'm just sitting there watching this, and I'm just like, ooh, well, maybe this isn't just football. It's football. It's a little bit different here. So that kind of got me, it woke me up and had me like, paying attention and making sure I knew what the heck was going on.
Definitely got to keep your head on a swivel, man. I could just like, that's the best of the best right there in the NFL, man.
Yeah, it was. And Jesse was one of those guys who he was just kind of unassuming because he was like, real cool, real laid back, but he had this real deep bass voice, and he was just all muscle. But I mean, he was a smaller guy, but he was never one that just came off as like a smaller player, and definitely didn't play like one when he brought the leather. So he was, he was every bit of what a middle linebacker should be in the NFL.
Nice. Like some guys back in the day, like Sam Mills was like that too. He was real compact like that. And the only real guy I can think of today is like Luke Kuechly.
He did exactly just that same kind of guy. Yeah,
he's a man.
He was always in the right place, always like buzzing around. You just never had a play where you just could like outsmart him at the position. And so it was, he was just very similar to that kind of.
Very nice motor. So so you hung around in the NFL for like, I think it was 3-4 years, and then you cruised up to Canada and you tore it up there, bud.
Yeah, I had a nice career after my time. So it was a year in Atlanta, then it was 4 years in New England, and
Okay.
then came back to Atlanta for training camp, thinking that I'd have a chance to get back on an NFL roster. That didn't work out. So I sat out that year. The next year, I got invited to a camp in Denver, and I was like, all right. It was during the off season, so I get a chance to go out there. And one of the first days we're out there for like a mini camp or something. I'm in the training room getting taped up, and I'm like, I know that these guys have talent here, and I know that it's going to be a long shot for me, but I'm going to go out here and do my best, give it my best, and just see what happens. And so, guy walks into the training room with both of his shoulders in some sort of device, and it's Steve Atwater. And I'm like, oh yeah, he did have surgery at the end of the year, and I forgot about it. But not only he had one, he had two shoulder surgeries. And so I was gonna be like, the guy, like the insurance policy, just in case things didn't work out, and like if there were some delays in his rehab. So I was there all during the off season, taking all the reps, taking all the snaps, and lo and behold, he did get better, and he was ready for camp. And so I was out of Denver, and then the next thing I knew, I was just like, all right, if this thing is over, it's over. I had a call from NFL Europe, but I was ready to go to Amsterdam, which was kind of like, this is going to be fun, born in Europe, and now I get to go back and play and be one of the people, so to speak. But
Right.
that didn't materialize before Edmonton came and were like, why don't you come up here? And so I went to Edmonton, and that was the beginning of the rest of my career.
Yeah, man. Was he like a fourth-time All-Star? Like that's equivalent to a Pro Bowl, correct? Or
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun time because they knew that they knew where I'd played. They'd seen film on me. They knew I was a good enough athlete and a good enough guy to go and be on the team, but they had no idea where to put me because they don't really have a strong safety in Canada because they don't have a tight end.
Okay.
And so they have an extra cornerback they call a halfback. It's just like, a cornerback that we have in the US where a guy plays on the wide receiver in the slot.
Yeah.
Well, in Canada, they have two of those, and they're just like your normal regular speed receivers. And so that was where they started me. But I kept having a penchant for like keeping my eyes in the backfield, which you're not supposed to do. And I was always supporting on the run. So they're like, we're going to move you to linebacker. And I thought, oh God, you're going to make me into like a Jesse Tuggle type of person. Like, yeah, that's kind of like my first thought. I was like, you're just going to put me down there where all the bullets are coming at you faster. And the game is like moving quicker. And I was just like, all right. And so, yeah, I gave it a shot. And my coach at the time, he was just like, I don't know what to say. Like, I didn't know what to expect putting you a linebacker, but you did an excellent job. And we think we're just going to keep you there. This seems to be the place where you seem to be the most comfortable. So then I just ended up being a linebacker the rest of the time I was in Canada.
And that was with Edmonton?
Correct. That was with Edmonton, the then Eskimos, the now called Elks. And then from there, I went to Winnipeg and was also a linebacker there with the Blue Bombers, linebacker safety. So there was a guy that I played with in Edmonton named Singor Mobley. He played with the Dallas Cowboys out of Washington State. He and I were very similar in that we were two safeties who had played, U.S. safety, free safety, strong safety. And so when we got on the same roster in Canada, they would have us where we would both like go back and forth between safety and linebacker. And so it was one of the disguises that we could use to like, fool offenses because they didn't know which linebacker was blitzing, which linebacker was covering, which linebacker. So it was fun playing with a guy that was very similar in experience that I had.
I see you got that old school New England helmet in the back there.
Oh yeah.
From your time Super Bowl. You went to Super Bowl 31, didn't you?
Super Bowl 31. That's my helmet from the 75th season. That's my helmet from the Super Bowl season. That's just an OU helmet. It's not my actual helmet. I went back many years later and they just gave me one. That's my rookie helmet from
that's sweet.
Atlanta.
Nice.
There's a Winnipeg one here.
Nice.
There's
Very nice.
Edmonton. Yeah, these guys are now champions. They can't be beat. It's great for them. These two up here. So this one is signed by Joe Gibbs.
Nice.
Washington. And then this one is from Tony Dorsett, which I got from him.
Very nice.
One day. So yeah.
Cool.
Just keep it back. And then up there are all my game balls from Oklahoma.
Nice. Oh, Switzer like to give out them game balls, huh?
He did. I got a couple. I take a picture every now and then when we play a team like UCLA a couple of years ago. I posted a picture. I live in Virginia now, and so that
Nice.
one, Oklahoma versus Virginia, that I like that one a lot because if anybody comes in here, they're like, "Oh, but you guys are nothing." I just went at the ball.
Right.
We're nothing now. We're nothing. Okay.
That was a Gator Bowl, right?
That was that
Virginia?
That was the Gator Bowl. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, that was a good win too. Really big win.
Yeah, that was the game that I thought was going to be my absolute last game. I had no idea that, what the next step was going to be as far as preparing for the NFL and if the NFL was going to come after me. So I remember playing that game like a man and saying, like, this might be the last football game I ever play in my life. And so I remember they took me out at halftime because I was out of control.
Nice, man. Just laying them out, were you?
I was and
Nice.
didn't even care. And I was
Right.
talking trash, and that talking that much trash was just not my game. And so they were like, we're just gonna bring you over here off to the side, just let you cool off a little bit.
Sometimes them emotions will get you, man. I've been that way in games too, or you're just whatever, man, and you're just going all out. And
Exactly.
it's just
And
part of
it
the
helps
game,
you.
man.
It does. And sometimes it helps you, but sometimes you gotta, push that to the side because you gotta process what's going on. But at that day I really didn't care.
Right. Thought emotions over thinking for sure.
Yeah.
So after you got out of retired out of football, you went to be a scout for the Skins. I mean, for the Commanders.
Yes. For the team in Washington, yes. I was a pro scout there, working in the pro department, which was a great experience because everybody always knows about the scouting department from the combine, and they show all the scouts that are sitting up there in the stands, and those are the guys that scout the college talent, but not a lot of people are aware that there is a pro scouting department as well. And the pro scouting department is in charge of knowing what the makeup of our team is, what is available from a pro level. So all the guys who have either left college, guys who have been drafted and cut, anybody who's a free agent, anybody who's on the street. And we need to have an idea of what those people are like in case we have a need on our current roster. Like during the season, the guy goes down, he's going to be down for a week or two. We need to have somebody to come in. We'll elevate somebody from the practice roster, put somebody on the practice roster. We need to know who all those people are. So the pro scouting department, we scouted all those players, and we also did advanced scouting for all the games we were playing. So, for example, if in 2 weeks we were going to play the New York Giants, I would go and watch that game, whoever they were playing, and I would do a scouting report and come back and present it to our coaches and let them know these are the things that they're doing. These are the kind of things that we see. These are the kind of trends, and I would pull all the stats and do all the background work for them to help when they were done with the current week's play, who we were playing. When they wake up the next morning, they have a whole fresh new set of current information on the upcoming opponent. So that was part of the pro scouting stuff. And then we were in charge of ranking all the free agents. So everybody who's going to be a free agent in the upcoming class or in the upcoming offseason at the start of the league year, we ranked those players and tried to best assess who would be a good fit for our team because, we've got people here, and here, but these guys are out here and for this much money and this guy's aging. And so we used to just have to stack our team against how people were in the league and figure that stuff out. So that was part of the fun of being a pro scout as opposed to the guys who grinded out like on the road in the college scouting department.
That does sound pretty interesting, man. That's a lot of research, but it's like cool research, you get to go to different games and So you were a pro scout for the Skins. I've always been a Philly fan. So what was it like scouting Donovan and McNabb?
So when it was cool because you get to watch a lot of film and you kind of have an idea of what you're going to see, what you're going to get, what you think that they're going to do, especially if they're playing an opponent that you also have scouted. And so it's like, if I'm watching one particular game was Philly was a home game against Carolina. So I'm like, all right, well, I know Carolina's defense. I know what they're going to do. And then you don't really watch it from a fan's sort of perspective. First off, it's in the press box, so you're just watching it from up there, but you're taking notes on things that you know, like, all right, this is Philly strength, this is Carolina strength, so they're going to do these kind of things. And so you just kind of go in with like what you anticipate you might see, what you think their game plan might be. And then you come out of it with like, all right, so they did do these things, but they also did these things, and they didn't do these things and the things that I expected. And so you would come back with kind of like a different kind of mindset as to what it was like watching someone like Donovan Mcnabb and how he would like work his progressions and who he was always picking on from a matchup standpoint, and what he would do in certain situations in like the field or in how much time was left in the game and stuff. So that was always the fun thing about going to the pro games, is that, you know, you had a better appreciation for what it is that the fan ends up seeing or what they're going to get a chance to see, but you kind of get a preview of it and you get a working knowledge of it prior to our team at the time, Washington, playing. So
you ever thought about getting into coaching, man? Like that's a pretty nice skill to have.
Well, so the thing about coaching, and when I was in Washington, I learned this. I've had a lot of experiences with a lot of good coaches. I've been fortunate to have been around some great men who've put in the time and the effort to mold me and help give me all the tools to be successful. And I love that I got to spend every minute with every one of them. But then when I got to Washington and I saw what those coaches were like, they were some of the coaches who were in the same kind of mold, who were like the tough love but very straightforward and honest coaches. And I enjoyed watching them from like behind the scenes, but it didn't feel like it was genuinely something that I could do. So whereas if I were going to be a coach, I have to be myself and I have to be true to myself. And like, I don't think that my personality fits with every coaching staff. Like I would be more of a Tony Dungy type of coaching staff kind of guy, where it's not so much of a big energy kind of always in your face kind of coach. And like I said, those I would imagine those are fewer and far between. And so coaching was just something that I never felt like I was specifically like had the right makeup to just go in and like be able to work in a system where I could just be myself, but also be an effective coach.
Tony Dungy he was a really great coach. I did a Little League 5th and 6th grade in Wyoming, Casper, Wyoming. That's where my wife and I lived before we moved here to Oklahoma City. And that's the kind of coach I was. I was more of a player's coach. Like it's hard to find that line between, like, you can find it between a player's coach and a coach's coach, you know.
Right.
You can find that line, then it's a great experience. But I've seen a lot of guys push a lot of kids away from the game of football just because they were like win, you know, instead of developing them as a player and as a person. Like, it sucks to see.
Yeah, I've watched it, even parents, and this is from a lot of different sports and a lot of different experiences. This isn't even from a football parenting standpoint, but just watching parents interact with their kids. And I think they think that they are doing the right thing by doing what it is that they see, what they think a coach is doing. And like, I can just see the body languages in the kids. And it's just like, it's disheartening for me to watch like a parent be too overbearing in a child's development in sports. And so that's another thing that it just, like, you see too much of that, then you're just like, I can't I don't want to be like that, and I want to authentically be myself. But at the same time, I have this track record, and I'm not someone who's just gonna like, let these kids just goof around and not get the things done. But there was always that balance, and so I was just like, yeah, this is probably something that would just be better suited for the guys who are cut out for coaching, because coaching is not for everybody. And I tell that to anybody who asks me, who thinks it's like an easy thing. I'm like, no, it's not as easy as you think.
It's not. So what do you think? You think it would be if they had the transfer portal back in your day of playing? Would you take advantage of it, or what do you think about the transfer portal?
So my thought, well, we had an opportunity when I was at Oklahoma. They sat us down in the big red room and were like, these things have happened, blah, 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 these things have transpired campus wide. And, if you want to leave today, right now, you could tell us you want to leave. And I remember sitting in that room, and 99.9 guys who might have been like thinking about it, or like, we're having little whispers about it. They all just got like, nah, I'm not going anywhere. There's only one guy that I can think who left that meeting who ended up transferring, and that was that. But I don't know that back then, under those rules, if the transfer portal was something that I would have done, because I remember if you transferred within the conference, so if I went to another Big 8 school, I had to sit out 2 years. And if I went to another school, I would have to sit out 1 year. So that was already like a deal breaker as far as, I couldn't. I played a little bit as a freshman. So then I'm going to sit out the next 2 years and then maybe redshirt and then hopefully have a year. And so it was a lot different rules that we were playing under back then than the guys have a chance to now. So, but transfer portal plus NIL, if they'd had that back in the day, the same way that they have it now, I don't know that I could have been talked out of transferring for what would have been the best deal I thought was there available for me in my 18-year-old mind, which is a wild concept to talk about, because now I have all this experience, I lifelong experience, and would I do some things different? Yes. Would make some different choices and change the way? Yeah, I might do some of these things. But when you're 18 and the world is your oyster and everything is out in front of you, these kids are making these business decisions that they're making now. I don't envy them. I'm jealous of them that they have the opportunity to do it and they have the freedom to do it. But I don't envy being in that position where at that young of an age, you're being sometimes pressured, sometimes internally, sometimes externally. You're being pressured to, make these decisions, and money's involved now. And so, like I said, I'm very, very envious of the opportunity, but I don't know. I don't know that I could say that I would have done different than today's athlete if it were set up the same way back then.
Yeah, I mean, what do you expect an 18-year-old kid to do when he's offered 50 G's to come play football? I mean, and some of the athletes, they're in low poverty, anyway. So what do you think is going to happen? I mean, it's crazy. And then the NCAA, they don't have any kind of financial literacy classes, like nothing like that to go along with that money that being shelled out,
Yeah. And so if we're gonna do this correctly, and NCAA aside, like the schools, they have conferences, they get together and they have meetings, they talk about things and they share different strategies for what they can do, on the academic side or in the background and all those kinds of things. Like there's a bunch of different things, but from a conference standpoint, the Big 12 could do itself a favor. The SEC, whoever, they all could do themselves a favor if they sit down and start teaching these kids, making them have a mandatory class on being fiscally responsible. I know it happens at the NFL. It's one of the first things that they do. They talk about it in orientation. when you first get to your team, and they try to suggest that you sit down and talk with somebody other than your agent, and because he is one voice, but he's kind of already in your corner. So you need somebody who's not somebody who can give you a different perspective at times. And so, but that also can be dangerous, because you got to also know that somebody is not just, somebody who's just trying to sell you a bill of goods. It's not worth it. So they need to just sit these kids down and let them know that, with all this money becomes all this responsibility, but also comes all this visibility, and everybody sees you as someone that they might want to think of as an easy target to, somehow get in your pocket. And so the conferences can start setting that stuff up and trying to help the kids, because I think that would help, because no 18-year-old knows exactly what they're doing when they're offered 50, 60, 75, $100,000. And I've said that for years with like baseball players who get drafted straight out of like young actors who you see on the screen. You're like, oh, that 15-year-old actor just starred in this movie. And you're like, yeah. And so now they've just set themselves up for a life of, they've got money and they're going to have problems, but you're 15-year-old and you know what to do, and your parents and all. So yeah, money just adds more problems.
And you said internally before, and that's, I'm not saying anything, but it just seems like Caleb Williams' dad, and then Cam Newton's dad, and then we even back further, Marcus Dupree and the pastor, the whatever he was,
right,
taking advantage of him too. So
right, you got when you're dealing with just the player, the person you see on the field, the person who's wearing the number, carries the ball, makes the tackles, that stuff. That's just a tiny sliver of who that person is, and a piece of their world. And a lot of attention is not paid to all the circumstances where these people come from, and what the life is like for the people that are around them, and the support system, or even if it's a healthy support system, or if it's an unhealthy, like none of that stuff is taken to advantage. There's never been a school that says, oh, you know what, we were going to bring Marcus Dupree to Oklahoma State, but his support system, his family around, we're just going to pass on that, because nobody gets into all that. It's just, what can you do on the field? What can you do to make us better? What can you do to help us win? And then we'll figure out the rest later. And so a lot of times that figuring it out later is biting people. And they need to do a better job of kind of like assessing those types of things, and making those kind of things known so that they don't catch themselves. Because like I said, it's the very tip of the iceberg here with this NIL thing. We've seen it now, like, what is this? 1-2 years, and it's only going to continue to unfold as how the money continues to pour in, and how these kids maximize their college experience. And I feel like there's a kid who will start college this fall who's going to be one of the first kids who's going to graduate having played at 4 schools and made money at 4 schools. Like,
that's insane.
And Caleb might even be the first. Like, he might go Oklahoma, USC, somewhere else, and you can't begrudge the guy if the money's gonna flow to him, and you want him to come to your school and you want to pay him. He might be at Michigan next year because they got enough money to pay him. He might come back to Oregon and be an Oregon Duck one day. You just never know. And so, am I mad at it? It's go get what you got to get. It's, the opportunities are there. Take full advantage of them, because he may play in what he thinks is his last game before he goes to the league. It might also be his last game. He might never play again. So get as much as you put in your pocket.
Very true. And the thing that kind of rubs me wrong is just he just